Hello and welcome to the vlog. Now we start this edition with a question from a viewer who says, are you living on the boat full time at the moment? The answer to that question is no, I am not, for two main reasons. Firstly, the boat is still up on chocks and out of the water awaiting some maintenance work. Now I know I say this in every edition of the vlog and it must seem that, well, how much maintenance work does this boat actually need? Well, not that much really. The trouble is that when booking someone to come and do it, you're working on their schedule, and if they're any good, they're busy, and that means you have to book them several weeks ahead. So Justin, who is the engineer who is going to come and do the various bits I need doing, had to be booked up 3 or 4 weeks in advance. So he's coming this week to do the works, and that will be the works all done. Now, that said, the boat is still not going back into the water immediately after that is done because I can't really move on to it until I've sold my house, and unfortunately the house sale is just taking forever. I don't know what these lawyers and solicitors and councils do when they're doing their thing, but it does seem to be an awful big fat load of nothing, and that is why this episode is coming to you not from the boat but from my lounge at home. I am just waiting to exchange contracts, and once the house sale is all gone through and the work is done on the boat, then I can put it into the water, and I shall indeed be moving aboard and living aboard the boat, and I'm looking forward to that very much indeed. Now, the rest of this vlog episode is all about maintenance works, and what I hadn't mentioned in the last one is that the boat did get its second coat of hull blacking. You'll recall in a couple of episodes ago I mentioned it had had its first coat, it was waiting for its second. It has now had that second coat, and the hull is indeed looking not quite shiny, but nice and, well painted with this bituminous paint that stops the hull from rusting. The hull, of course, being made from steel. So that is good, and that can now be put back in the water. However, there are still some bits of paintwork above the waterline that really do need some maintenance work as well, which I'm going to be doing on the day that Justin is doing his bits. And you can see that, well, it's normal, isn't it? On a narrowboat, you're going to have 1 or 2 bangs and scratches and scrapes, either where the boat has banged into another one, or someone else has banged into it, or maybe you've banged into the canal side, whatever. There will be some scratches and scrapes on it, and indeed so there are on mine. 1 or 2 little bits where the rust is starting to show through, so I just need to sand those back. Hopefully not a huge job, there's not a lot of it, but there's just a few little bits here and there. I want to sand them back and then paint over them, and there are various ways one could do that. There are these rust treatments you can get. You sort of paint onto the rust and it does some chemical process which I don't quite know what it does. It hardens up the rust, and then you can put a primer on and top coat it. But unless you, the viewer, can suggest otherwise, my preferred option is to sand it all back and then just go over with a nice coat of hammerite. I like hammerite, it's good stuff. You can paint it onto rust as long as you've scraped off any loose bits. And I don't quite know whether hammerite has the same chemical reaction as these rust treatments, but to the best of my knowledge, you can paint it straight onto steel, you don't need an undercoat, you can paint it onto rust, and it does a good waterproof, good job. So for those bits of the hull that are black, and I have a tin of black hammerite, I'm thinking I'll just sand back and then paint over with the hammerite. But if you do know better, if you are a paint expert, please do drop me a line or leave a message in the comments on this video, and I'd be very pleased to hear from you. There's one really nasty crack in the red paint on the back of the boat, right on the stern, where, for whatever reason, a big chip has come out right down to the steel. It's just starting to get a little bit of surface rust on it now, so I need to peel that back. And I think I found a tin of the right colour red paint and some primer in the locker in the boat when I was looking through that earlier, so I'll have a go at touching that up as well. Now, a couple of things I've done this week. I've treated myself to 2 things for the boat, the first of which is a new starter battery. The old battery is a open wet cell lead acid battery, and it has been tested during the survey and it was found to be completely shot, so that needs replacing. Even one of the little cells at the top is sort of fizzing and bubbling gently to itself, which is not really good, not a good sign, I don't think. And it is useless, so I've bought a new one, bought it online from a place called Tainer Batteries, and so far very impressed. They delivered next day. It was very well packaged, very well set up for transport, with little stickers over the sort of vent seals which you have to peel off, and I've now got that in my garage on a float charge, just keeping it sort of topped up until I can take it up to the boat. And the other thing I've treated myself to is one of these which is a battery charge management controller by a company called Adverk, and these seem to be pretty much an industry standard, and it sits between the alternator and the batteries. It sort of doles out the charge coming from the alternator to the battery to make the charging of the batteries more efficient. Now, I have read some very interesting stuff on the Smart Gauge website, which says that these things just aren't necessary in a modern narrowboat. Aha, but my narrowboat is 15 years old. So if you go back to 15 years ago, apparently these kind of things were more useful, and for some reason mine doesn't have one. So, you know, I might find I've wasted my money. It might be this isn't necessary at all, but I don't know. I thought I'd quite like to have one. It seems to me that having a more intelligent approach to charging the batteries is probably better than the alternator just throwing volts and amps at the batteries. So I'm going to have that installed as well, and hopefully that will just keep the batteries in tip-top condition. So that's it. New battery, battery charge controller, whole list of items that Justin's going to do. He's going to do a full engine service. He's going to replace the engine mounts because they were found to be shot. He's going to put a fuse in the DC lead from the battery charger, which for some reason doesn't have one, and then one or two other miscellaneous bits. Once all that is done, the boat is pretty much ready to go back in the water. The only other bit needing to be done, not needing to be done, but I want it to be done, is putting solar panels on the roof. Now, I had selected a supplier for solar panels and a charge controller and fitting it and all that. For one reason or another that I won't bore you with, they aren't able to do it at the moment, and I'm not sure whether to just wait for them to become available or pick someone else. To be honest, as we're heading into winter and there's not going to be much sun around, the solar panels probably won't be doing much anyway. So I'm in no great hurry to get that done, but I do want to have it done at some point. And finally for this vlog, speaking of winter, it's looking the way the house sale is going. I won't get onto the boat until the middle of October, by which point you're practically into winter, and parts of the canal network shut down over winter so the Canal and River Trust can do maintenance, and parts of the river canals will freeze up when the temperatures go low. So it's not a time I really want to be actually boating around much. So I'm looking to put the boat into a marina for 4, possibly 5 months over winter, and I think that'll be good because it'll give me a chance to live aboard, get used to the boat without actually having to go anywhere, and I will of course have all the amenities of a marina such as shore power and water and an emptying point for the cassette loo and things like that. So it'll just be a more easy, gentle introduction to living on the boat before, come springtime, summer, I do actually go out cruising the cut, as the plan is. So at the moment I am firing off emails like Billio to every marina around the Midlands area, because that's where I'm going to be, asking if they've got any space for a continuous cruiser to moor up for a few months while living aboard. Some of them have said no, some of them have said, well, we would, but we haven't got any spaces, and some of them have said, yes, here is our fee. And let me tell you now, ouch, to mooring fees in marinas. It's not cheap. People say narrowboating is a cheap way of living. Not if you're parked up in a marina. Oh, no, it isn't. Anyway, I think it's a cost I shall have to swallow. So that is something I'm looking at, and I will let you know how I get on. Anyway, as usual, thanks very much for watching. I hope the updates are interesting to you, maybe useful. If you like it, give it a click on the like. If you hate the video, give it a click on the dislike. Don't do that. And if you have any comments or questions, pop them in the questions below and I will do my best to answer them. For now though, thank you very much for watching as always, and tune in next time. Cheers now, bye bye.